But as it went on, what I saw and got out of it was again begging Massa to please do something. And again, that is why we continue to see the same individuals put out front when shit like this happens. What I did notice that they didn't do, I think for at least 2 weeks now, two of the primary pieces of evidence have finally come out, and they didn't address none of that. One, the audio tape, which I think a few days ago I pointed out how they have really been online trying to convince us that we didn't hear what we heard. And as I was saying initially, why this case is highlighting shit that we even deal with out here in Los Angeles is because I've had cases against me and I've been to court for other folks who've had cases. And the mental game is one of the primary games they play in that damn courtroom. Even when we're not guilty of nothing. But they know quite often, once they finally get that 12 or 15 who's going to make up the jury, 12, actually sitting up, and then usually about two or three alternatives, they know quite often, especially if you don't have a good defense attorney fighting for you for the best jury, because almost anytime black folks are in that courtroom, they're some of the first ones dismissed when it's a case against us. But the mental game is what ultimately plays out, and it gives many of the jurors the right to pull the race card without necessarily saying so, but convict us or find us guilty. One such case was my cousin Faison, and he was being accused of making terrorist threats by people who needed a damn interpreter when they got up and testified. So they can't speak English well enough to testify to what actually happened, but yet they're testifying that somebody said something in English. And then another major piece of evidence which would have proved my cousin's innocence was the videotape that just so happened to come up missing in his case. But in this case with Nolan Wells, an audio tape actually came forward in which we heard that an individual named Bart, who they were trying to act like at first wasn't even there, was called out on that boat as the one who killed Nolan. And that is when I salute Willie D and even Compton Rick Rock and a couple of others for sticking to. That's a major part of the mind game they are now playing in the public as they're prolonging the results of their investigation, or even making arrests or filing charges against anybody. At this point, a whole bunch of folks are guilty of attempting to cover this shit up after the fact. But again, same shit that happens with us out here in LA. The second piece of evidence that came up like yesterday was they identified the governor is actually has a not just a friendly but a professional relationship with the parents of the prime suspect. This individual Bart, his mother was appointed to the Mississippi Board of Health by the governor. So when he came out initially saying that they didn't suspect foul play, and even was threatening Crump and Al Sharpton, we now know why that is, and we now know why everyone up underneath him has been playing a role in attempting to cover this up and not go into actually arresting this individual Bart. But neither one of these points were brought up in that press conference today. And again, this is where, the average person that watches something like that and hear, Crump talk all that legality, and then Al Sharpton, try to make all the insinuations about because the Department of Justice is now under Trump's watch. We ain't got no justice under neither watch, Republican or Democrat. But they didn't bring up the two primary pieces of evidence that would have really raised the consciousness of all the black journalists who were there, and even giving them the orders to go out and press the fact that we can't move past that fucking audio tape and what we heard on that. That's the only piece of evidence that's needed. What we heard on that fucking audio. And another thing they've been doing the past week to try to dismiss that audio tape is saying that it was enhanced. They're not saying it was altered, but they keep saying it was enhanced as though that is a bad thing. Not that the sister who enhanced it went back and altered or added words or took words out. But again, they keep throwing out that enhance to vilify both the audio tape and those of us who keep raising up. And that's what we got to keep doing. That's where these gatekeepers, once again, tell us to bow down and act like we don't hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. That audio tape was all we needed to fucking hear to verify what we already knew from the very fucking beginning when we heard this.